Hi, welcome to what Realtors Don't Tell You. Today we're going to share with you a little more on what boundary surveys are and the importance of a boundary survey in purchasing a lot or a home. One of the questions that you have the right to ask before you purchase or before you buy a home or a lot is, has there been a boundary survey completed? With that question, of course, the realtor and the buyer, the seller, would need to answer yes, there has been a survey, or no, there is not. And then there can be a discussion further on as far as is it important to have one, and how much do they really cost. Hopefully some of the things which we will tell you will answer those questions. A boundary survey, as you can see here, shows the boundary of the parcel that you've purchased, and that in this example is shown by the yellow line. That is the boundary, and that is what you're purchasing. This tells you the area, the location, and some of the things. Again, the boundary is being shown by the yellow line, and this depicts a little bit of what's happening. I'm going to come here and scale in a little bit, and then I'll be able to pan and give a little description of what's going on. Before I do that, I'd like to just come over here, and this shows a vicinity map is what this is called. Of course, it shows you the property in relationship to a variety of roads, Higbee Road, South Bay Road, etc. But this is a topography map, and this we'll talk on a later segment. But as you can see, the property drops from Higbee Road into South Bay, part of the Big Moose Lake. This ground, of course, being that it's very long and large, is not going to be a real problem. But if it was a small lot and it dropped that quickly, of course, we'll talk later on how that could be costly in placing a home in that type of a scale. But coming back here, I just want to give some highlights on a boundary survey. As you've noticed and as we've talked about, the yellow lines represent the boundary. The bearings and the distances represent what you can anticipate. This line here, this point here, they found a 2-inch angle iron, and you travel 112 feet or 100.12 feet here to a second angle iron, and you'd be able to pull a tape and get very close to that distance. Again, you can visibly see what's on these corners, and that would be one of the questions in addition that I would ask is, are there corners placed on each of the areas so you can visibly see your property before you purchased. You can see here that this ground is 3.156 acres, so it's a fairly large piece. It tells us who it is owned by, located, in the county recorder at a different location where you could get that material. Be aware that 1 acre equals 43,560 square feet. As you can see here, the area is 137,491 square feet. Take that number, divide it by 43,560, you get your acreage. Going a little further up, you can see that there's the home, it has a deck, and there's no problems particularly with the structure in regards to the boundary. We have plenty of room here, 42 feet, 27, 23 here. A home next door is fairly close. A one-story framed home, but it does not encroach and does not have or show any problems on the property that we have purchased. You can see here is a gravel driveway. Also, you can see that this road, South Bay Road, goes through your property, and that would be a right-of-way, as it's depicted here, of 50 feet that goes through your property that you would not be able to shut off. That would be part of your title report, part of your exceptions in your title report, that road is there and will be permitted to stay. It tells you what they're locating on each of the corners, as well as, of course, it ties back into Higbee Road, where it gives you your POB, which is the point of beginning. One note here, I find this very interesting, is of course this is a north arrow, so north, it shows you which way north is. That north that they have chosen to use on this plat is basically an assumed bearing. They're showing it an astronomical north from solar observations, and then they give you a 14 bearing difference to magnetic north, that if you were out to take a compass, you would be able to show magnetic north through that compass. So there are differences in Norse, and that becomes not very important to most people, but for surveyors and engineers, that is needed to at least be aware of. Here it gives you some additional notes about the property and whatnot. Again, this is just an example of a boundary survey. Again, answering the question, what do boundary surveys show you? We've kind of gone through a few of those things. It would show any overlaps, any underlaps in your deeds, as well as it would show any conflict with improvements. Now, one of the major conflicts that a survey does disclose is the fence lines versus the deed lines. Let me give an example of that. The fence line is the actual improvements, a boundary that people accept or feel that that's their property, and the deed line is this line depicted in the yellow, which describes your property. That's one of the most common differences that we have found in surveying, that those two may be a little different, but a survey would depict that, and you would know what that is before you purchase the ground if a survey has been completed. Now, if a survey has not been completed, then you certainly have the right as part of your due diligence to request a survey. A survey could range anywhere between $700 to $3,000, depending upon how large and where the property is located. In most cases where there is a subdivision and you've purchased all of Lot 4 of a certain subdivision, those mean, or that tells you by that very question, it tells you that has been surveyed once before and has been subdivided, and there should be some control that the surveyor could give you a reasonably quick turnaround as well as a break-in cost because of that. Who is to pay for it? That's again negotiated in your contract. Sometimes I have seen where both people pay for it, both the seller and the buyer, but again, that's determined by your real estate contract. A survey is in my opinion very important. Obviously, we are land surveyors, and we highly recommend surveys to know where your boundaries are. Let me share an example of one of the situations that we have ran into. A buyer was selling a piece of ground where they thought that they had approximately 14.5 acres to sell. And they determined with the seller that they were going to sell the ground based upon a price per acreage. And so they determined the acreage the best they could, times it by the factor or the cost per acre factor that they determined, and sold the property. Later, a few months later, the buyers approached us and says, we really want to know what we bought. We want to know if we got more or less the amount. Again, it's after the fact, and at this point, it is what it is, and there's no changing it. And so we did survey it and determined that the acreage in this case was actually an acre and a half larger. So it was about 16 acres. And so the buyers got an acre and a half basically for nothing because a survey wasn't done by the sellers. In this case, that equaled approximately $70,000 that the seller lost because they did not pay for a $1,500 survey. So again, very important, especially when you're buying ground, to know the boundaries. A boundary survey is going to tell you that. It's going to tell you the things that I have depicted here, and certainly in our opinion very important. Again, we appreciate you purchasing whatrealtorsdon'ttellyu.com and the material. We hope you find success in your real estate adventures as well as in your dream home and different things that you are purchasing the ground for. We again appreciate it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us on the email provided on the website. Thank you and have a good day.